Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Is that high enough? Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Yasodanandana Brajana Ranjana Yasodanandana Brajana Ranjana Yasodanandana Brajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Girdhari Radha Girdhari Radhe Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Jai Jai Prabhupada, 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 Jai Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki Jam Vishpad Paramahamsa Pravijayakacharya Sotarasata Shishimade Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada ki ISKCON BBT founder Acharya Jagat Guru founder Acharya Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda ki Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki Samaveda Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki Gaur Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shishi Guru and Gauranga. Glories to Srila Prabhupada. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Budale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Vicharne Vishesha Sungali Vischadistane. We're going to get to hear about the characteristics of King Puranjan from 4th Canto, 25th chapter, text number 43. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narada uvacha iti taudam pati tatra samudya samayam mitaha tam pravishya parim rajan mumudate shatam samaha. Narada uvacha iti taudam pati tatra samudya samayam mitaha tam pravishya parim rajan mumudate shatam samaha. Narada vacha iti taudam pati tatra samudya samayam mataha tam pravishya parim rajan mumudate shatam samaha. Narada vacha iti taudam pati tatra samudya samayam mataha tam pravishya parim rajan mumudate shatam samaha. Narada vacha iti taudam pati tatra samudya samayam mitaha tam pravishya parim rajan mumudate shatam samaha. Narada vacha iti taudam pati tatra samudya samayam mitaha tam pravishya parim rajan mumudate shatam samaha. Be my guest. Narada vacha iti taudam pati tatra samudya samayam mitaha tam pravishya parim rajan mumudate shatam. Any of our three guests? Narada vacha iti taudam pati tatra samudya samayam mitaha tam pravishya parim rajan mumudate shatam samaha. Narada vacha, the great sage Narada spoke. Iti, thus, thou, they. Dampati, husband and wife. Tatra, there. Samudya, being equally enthusiastic. Samayam, accepting one another. Mitaha, mutually. Tam, in that place. Pravishya, entering. Purim, in that city. Rajan, O king. Mumudate, they enjoyed life. Shatam, 100. Sama, years. Translation. The great sage Narada continued, my dear king. Which king is he speaking to? Yeah, it's a tongue twister, huh? Puccini Barsha. The great sage Narada continued, my dear king, these two, the man and the woman, supporting one another through mutual understanding, entered that city and enjoyed life for 100 years. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. 100 years is significant in this connection because every human being is given the concession to live up to 100 years. The span of life is different on different planets according to the planet's distance from the sun. In other words, 100 years on this planet is different from 100 years on another planet. Lord Brahma lives for 100 years according to time on the Brahmaloka planet, but one day of Brahma is equal to millions of years on this planet. Similarly, the days on the heavenly planets are equal to 6 months on this planet. On every planet, however, the span of life for a human being is roughly 100 years. According to the lifespans on different planets, the standards of living also differ. Now, would you like to hear a nice class? Then could we all pray together that some divine grace descend? Om Jnanatimidandasya Ginanjana Salakaya Chakshurn Militam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Mano Bhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadandikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sujivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karana Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gourange Radhe Vrindavanishwari Vrishabhana Sutta Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakopa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. When I first read this verse in purport, I was thinking, wow, 100 years, okay, time. I thought I might pull a Vijay and go, well, let's say a little something and go to the next verse. But I slept on it, and I think there might be a little nectar that might come. I hope so. First of all, if you were new to reading Srila Prabhupada's books, you'd have to raise your eyebrows and go, wait a second, they're saying there are living entities on other planets. There are different gradations of enjoying life. And somebody's living millions and millions of years. It's pretty fantastic. Sitting in Pacific Beach and just kind of looking around, and if one was simply taking his source of information or knowledge from what we got in school or from newspapers, the internet, or TV, movies, etc., we'd think, wow, sounds like science fiction, myth, or this or that. But we say, right here is the source of knowledge. The proof is right here. It's srimadbhagavatam. This is the highest evidence you can present anywhere within the universe if you want to make a point and establish it and for it to be accepted by any learned, wise person anywhere in the universe. It is the personification of Sri Krishna. It contains all that the human beings need to realize they're not human beings, but that they're eternal spirit souls with an eternal relationship with Krishna. That by hearing and chanting this Srimad Bhagavatam, by applying it within our heart and within our lives, in our interactions with each other, our love, our forgotten love for Krishna is reawakened. That's the perfection of life. We heard this morning that all the Vedic literatures are simply glorifying the two. You remember what it said, Dravida? Yeah. That's all we heard this morning. I got her. All the Vedic literatures are simply glorifying the two lotus feet of Krishna. Vedesya sarvaraham eva vedya. By all the Vedic literatures, Krishna is to be known. And the most intimate, confidential, and certainly inconceivable aspects of the Supreme Absolute Truth, Sri Krishna, are found in Srimad Bhagavatam. Now, this is one purport Srila Prabhupada said, this is the culture of the soul right here, Srimad Bhagavatam, because it's discarded everything else. I mean, it's all there, but in terms of emphasis and what's important, this is taking us to the platform of the soul, the transcendental platform. He said in the same purport that Bhagavad Gita, as it is on the platform of intelligence. At the end of the Bhagavad Gita, he says, anyone who studies this conversation of ours worships me with his intelligence. So this is to help us have some purification and understanding of 5 subject matters. Pick one. No, Dravida, you're out. You have 5. Shoot for any one of them. Jamal? Karma? Time? The Lord? Oh, okay. Now the younger devotees. Vijay will go ahead and, what'd you say? And what's the 5th one? Stop. Raise your hand. What is it? No. What's the 5th one? We didn't say it. Wait. Did anybody say time? Who said time? Oh, forgive me. Okay, then the living entity. My bad. B. Krishna knows how to keep me humble. Confirmed. Is that for me? Now, vibrate is the mode to be in. So, time is what this purport and verse is basically dealing with. Srila Prabhupada said 100 years, it's very significant. And people used to live up to 100 years. It wasn't, it was possible. Nowadays it's really, really rare. And of course the reason that is, it's not that just that lives get shorter as time goes on in this age of Kali. That's really important in this age of Kali. But everything we do, everything we eat, everything outside of Krishna consciousness, it is not helping us. It's not healthy. It's destroying us. Whether it's the irregulation of life, whether it's the goal of life being for sense gratification and depending on how laboriously and how enthusiastically you race toward that dangling carrot of sense gratification. Or I've done it so many times, I usually say the water. Hey, fluoride, what poison comes from the production of petroleum? Oh, that's a great idea. Let's put fluoride in our water and in our toothpaste and tell people it's good for you. Food we eat, it's not that it just is chemicals that they spray on it. That used to be the thing when I was growing up. Now they're genetically modifying it, thinking they can do better than Krishna. I mean, even if you get out in the middle of the country, you still have electromagnetic waves going through the atmosphere, things we don't even see, bombarding us. Weakened ozone, it happens. She repairs herself, Bhumi does, but it happens. Even the sunshine coming down, hitting the rays, the layers of our skin. causing cancer, damaging the cells. I mean, this world is problematic. And because we are not following the culture of the soul, the culture of Srimad Bhagavatam is given by the Lord, then that 100 years by our own doing is being reduced. It talks about at the end of Kali Yuga, heck, if you live to be 25, 30 years old, you will be an extremely old man or woman. Incredibly decrepitly old. So the medium age of death in the United States is, anybody know? I mentioned it yesterday. It's 78 is what I heard. 70 what? What did you think? 72? That's low. It's 78. I'll stick with that. And the interesting side note, and I don't mind putting it out there, you know what the medium age for people dying from COVID is? 78. Hare Krishna, it's the same age. My original point is that life is decreasing because of the quality of life we live. If it's selfish and exploitive, then we deserve to be restricted and punished. That's just the laws of God, the laws of nature. We're bringing it upon ourselves. People may be foolish, they may be ignorant, although innocent, but if they're given the alternative and they choose to continue on the path to the cliff going to degradation, then that's, you know, who's it on? It's on the individual. So anyway, 100 years. Time doesn't stop for anybody in this world. I remember the first time I saw a hourglass with the sand in it. It's so cool. You remember how it was fascinating? You see the little grain. It's grain by grain. And when you first turn it over, it takes a long time. But then at a certain point, it's really getting down there, and it seems like the grains are falling faster and faster, doesn't it? But it looks that way, right? And it's the same way in life. I'm twice as old as many of you. And I will tell you, the years in the beginning of the life of this body, very slow. But now it's just like, oh my God, it's a Kadashi again? Or even, Vyasa Puja or something like that. Oh my, it's amazing how quickly they're speeding by. And then time, the perception of time is also relative. Like some people can actually have like anxiety attacks, like how long is this Bhagavatam class going to go? You know, when you're not having fun, time just seems to like slow down. And when you're having fun, what is it? Just goes right like that. So the perception of time is very interesting. That's all through the medium of the mind, which Narada Muni, the great sage, he's incredible in how he just lays it out for the king and for you and me. If you simply study this section of Srimad Bhagavatam, you'll have Sankhya down, what we're made of, what we're misidentifying with, what our problem is in terms of our, goals in life and the way we're trying to achieve it, etc., etc. It's all right there in these pages. It's amazing. But the point is, we want to get out of this material world, the place where time, past, present, and future, has everybody in its grasp. Nobody is escaping it. Unless you're a pure devotee of the Lord. Then time doesn't influence one's consciousness, which is a symptom of oneself. Thus the sentence can be said, time doesn't influence the devotee. It's not stealing anything away from the devotee. Because we can even use I'll state the principle first, then an example. Because when the devotee is under the shelter of the divine energy of devotional service, all his activities, the results of his activities, the purpose of his activities, he who is pleased by his activities, the performer, etc., they're all on the eternal platform. And when we say eternal, it means no past and no future. The eternal present. And that's the nature of the divine energy. That is the spiritual world. That's where we're supposed to be thinking about, that's where I want to go in my next life. If one is not thinking about the next destination after this life, then they haven't attained human status. They may have 2 arms and 2 legs, but they're just stuck in the animal consciousness. It's like, I'm shifting gears, having retired and much less money coming in. I have to seriously think about, I got to pay the rent, got to pay the bills. You have to think about these things. And if I can't pay that rent and these bills, then I have to think, well, what would be next? Where will my shelter be? You have to think. You can't just be absorbed in the present if you're in mundane consciousness. If you're a pure devotee of the Lord, then you don't have to worry an iota about your future, your present, or even your past, no matter how degraded or sinful it may have been. Because we've surrendered to the lotus feet of the spiritual master, which is as good as surrendering to the lotus feet of the Lord. That's the process of taking shelter of the Lord's service, is following the instructions in the process given by the bona fide spiritual master in disciplic succession. So the devotee has no concerns. It's not that he's spaced out. It's not that it's just la-di-da-da. Srila Prabhupada says, an easy-going life and Krishna consciousness do not go well together. Human life is serious because we have the opportunity. Please give me the privilege of devotional service. We have the opportunity to engage in devotional service. That's our birthright. That's our inheritance. That's who we are and what we should be doing. Servants of Krishna, serving Krishna. And when one takes to that enthusiastically, like here it says the man and woman, they very enthusiastically engaged in their activities together, trying to enjoy in the city. Devotees, we should be very enthusiastic too about surrendering and serving Krishna. And when one is molding their life in that way, there was reference to the modes. I think there was something about the mode of goodness. The mode of goodness is conducive for realizing these things. As long as we stay in the lower modes of material nature, passion, and ignorance, we really are like, carrying the heavy load of rocks upon us. We're making advancement in Krishna consciousness, but it could be so much quicker and easier if we just let go of the burden of separate desires from surrendering and serving Krishna. And when you do that, automatically the potency of devotional service purifies the consciousness where you rise up within the modes to the mode of goodness. And if you continue in your seriousness and your sincerity, then we transcend the mode of goodness. Now, when one is in that frame of consciousness, one does not want to waste a single moment. Not a single moment. You don't see in the life of Srila Prabhupada, did you ever hear of him taking a vacation? Not once. Did you hear him talk about, well, you got 6 days and on the 7th day you can take rest? I think that's the Bible, not Srila Prabhupada's life. Now, he gave the instruction to Jayapataka Swami, live your life of service to the Lord and to the spiritual master as if in a marathon. That gives us some kind of idea of how precious every moment is and not wasting any time. To run a marathon, whether it's running, swimming, bicycling, or whatever it may be, you have to practice, you have to train, you have to become fit. And then you can give it your best. And those who generally run or participate in marathons, you know what they do after they've gone through that grueling marathon? They rest, and then they get ready for the next one. Because they have, there's a sense of accomplishment and pleasure in their performance of the marathon. And it's an analogy for us. I'm not saying, become super bhakta, superman devotee, but I'm saying this is the ideal set by our spiritual master and those who have surrendered their lives to him. Now, I made a little sideline, 78 years at the time of, for the medium of death by COVID. Now, I wasn't trying to minimize the seriousness of any illness. Krishna recommends that we take seriously disease, old age, death, and rebirth. We have to realize how serious they are. They're the biggest problems in life. If we take to the process of Krishna consciousness to solve those problems, all the other petty problems will be solved. Krishna takes care of it. Grace and Guru and Krishna take care of all petty problems. And Srila Prabhupada, when Jadharani in the very beginning came sick, her body has always been frail and prone to ill health, I suppose you could say. I've known her. I know her personally. At least I can speak when I knew her. And this pastime is based on. And Prabhupada said, he wrote a note on and put it up in the kitchen there in New York. He said, priorities, health first, chanting Hare Krishna, chanting your round second, service third, and reading fourth. Now that was the instruction he gave to his aspiring disciples, his aspiring devotees, neophyte devotees. If you look at the life of Srila Prabhupada, you'll see he didn't live by that rule. He revealed in a conversation in Vrindavan to Bhagaji and another person that actually I was always feeling some ill health. The entire time he was preaching here in the West. Ringing in the ears, headache, etc. But you would never know it. He never complained. I mean, I personally saw in the last months of his life a number of times when I got to go into the house and what have you. Not to speak of the last day. Not a single complaint once. Because he was absorbed in service to Krishna. For such a devotee, their health, it's like it's in the hands of Krishna. I'd rather preach than have good health. And that he got from his own spiritual master. The examples there in Bhakti Siddhanta, they were telling him, slow down, in the last months of his year. He said, what good is this body if I can't preach? The nectar of pleasing Lord Chaitanya and your spiritual master by throwing yourself wholeheartedly and sharing Krishna consciousness, it's not found in kicking back and relaxing. That pleasure is the greatest pleasure. Period. Here or there. It's stated Srimati Radharani herself will put others, encourage them to, you go give pleasure to the Lord. That's the mood of Lord Chaitanya that Krishna took on. Bringing others to the service of Krishna, Radha and Krishna. No greater pleasure. Such a great pleasure the Lord wanted to experience in himself. So, we're not Srila Prabhupada and we can't imitate. So we need to act in a balanced way. But generally, if we don't have an authority who's kind of honest, keeping up with us, overlooking, we tend to scale it down and back a little. It's the nature of the materialistic mind, the modes influenced mind, even in Krishna consciousness. I mean, we have to I'll read to you these 9 qualities of one who has attained bhava, the symptoms of bhava. They're wonderful. The one that originally got me to it was doesn't waste a moment's time. That's the second one. The first one is forgiveness. And I'm not going to elaborate very much on these 9 qualities, but the one that comes to mind when I heard it, there was one person who had left the movement who took devotees with him, who was a preacher, and he brought devotees to Srila Prabhupada, and when he left, some devotees went with him, and some of the GBC were like, they were ready to kill him, literally. They thought, what a demon. What should we do, Srila Prabhupada? And Srila Prabhupada said, well, you might forgive him. One who is in the mood of service to the Lord, that's a prominent quality they exhibit. Forgiveness. 2, concerned that not a moment's time should be wasted. You don't waste any time. So that's why it works out where one who's on the spiritual platform, he doesn't have to sleep the way you and I do. When he just pushes on. I mean, sleeping is like dying, Srila Prabhupada said. I don't want to... Does anybody here want to die? No one in material consciousness, despite whatever bravado they may present, wants to die. Not unless they've been pushed to the edge of extreme misery and suffering, and somebody might think death is better than this pain. But a normal person, no. You don't want to die. A pure devotee, he doesn't want to sleep because it's service to the Lord, nourishing the body, resting it. I mean, if you want to maintain good health, that number 1 principle, that's the focus. In the West, we say, make sure you have a good, healthy immune system. In Ayurveda, which is the real standard of health, given by Dhanvantari himself, an incarnation of the Lord, it's about keeping balance of the doshas, leading a balanced, healthy life. And the most important part of it is the consciousness and keeping it focused on the transcendent reality. Because, as Srila Prabhupada said, 90% of the disease is coming from the mind. If your mind is absorbed in matter, then of course it's going to be dragged down. And you'll exhibit the symptoms that we call disease. You've let the evil influence of Kali Yuga right in here, in the ears and eyes, and it contaminates the consciousness. And if the mind is dirty and unhealthy, unclean, contaminated, then of course you're going to exhibit symptoms in the external body. Symptoms are meant to show us something's wrong at the root. And ultimately, it's all about consciousness. So, when you're absorbed in Krishna consciousness, Krishna will take care of your health. And if he doesn't, he gives you the consciousness and the ability to tolerate it. And still, simultaneously, whatever challenges may be there, nothing stops devotional service. Not even when you're... Jayapataka Swami, for me, is the best example. My gosh, how many obstacles are you going to put on a man? He gets them. He's gotten them. And these tests, when they are tolerated and surpassed with one's devotion remaining steady, then the devotee is glorified. So that's why Srila Prabhupada said an easygoing life and Krishna consciousness, they don't go well together. If we're not pushing ourselves, if we're not feeling some resistance in our desire to grow in Krishna consciousness, it's not a good sign. Tests should be there. Challenges should be there. Haridas Thakur was challenged by Maya Devi herself. And you might think once he passed that test that'd be it. You hit the finish line. But was it? No, he was beaten 22 marketplaces after that. What kind of test is that? Incredible. Past it with flying colors, just simply chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Third symptom, detached. Fourth symptom, absence of false prestige. Fifth symptom, hope. Sixth symptom, eagerness. 7, a taste for chanting the holy names of Krishna. 8, attachment to the descriptions of the transcendental glories or qualities of the Lord. 9, affection for those places where the Lord resides. So, when one has attained Bhava, one manifests these things, these symptoms. For us, we should be aspiring for them. What consciousness do we come to before the Lord? Early in the morning, we kind of sometimes, if we're still in the mode of ignorance or didn't get enough sleep, this or that, anxiety about something, consciousness not being clear, how are we presenting ourselves? We're kind of like, the body's here, but is the consciousness? And it's that way with every activity of devotional service. If we're in the present and we're thinking why we're doing what we're doing and how we're doing it, then we have a good chance of pleasing the spiritual master and pleasing Krishna. We have a wonderful chance to be Krishna conscious. And the taste of Krishna consciousness is what we're looking for. We just have to, through association and hearing and practicing, get the dirt off. Clean the heart. One of my Prabhus this morning in class, I looked at another one of my Prabhus when I noticed, but one of my Prabhus this morning in chanting japa, this is my imitation. Don't mind. I'm not exaggerating, am I? It was the longest freeze I'd seen a devotee in quite some time. Like, I was just thinking, where in the world, in what part of the universe is his mind taking him? There's no telling. And that's why we chant together, because we get strength in numbers. Hearing the other devotees chant isn't a disturbance, it's a support. In Mayapur, when we have hundreds of devotees chanting, the name, you don't hear this audible name, but the transcendental vibration that is surrounding you while you're attentively chanting the names yourself, it's incredible. Taste for chanting the holy names, and we have to practice. We aren't fit to run the marathon now, but we need to practice every day. It's a challenge, and we should be aware of it. And we should ask for encouragement. I live to be corrected. I live to be encouraged. Because time is short. If I bring it to the essential point of the purport, time is short. As Srila Prabhupada quoting Chanakya Pandit, you can't buy back a single moment. I don't care if you are a multi-billionaire. You can't buy back a single bit of time. And when Yamaraj is coming to yank you out of that body, your wealth will do you no good. The power and the exploitation that you enjoy during this life, it'll only be the cause of your extreme misery right after leaving this body. So time is so precious. So very precious. And you realize that the older the body gets. And it's natural, because the more you engage in Krishna consciousness, the more realizations you have, and Krishna's made the perfect arrangement for us in this body and in our lives. It's the perfect arrangement by the Lord. Whatever is confronting us, understand that it's the Lord's arrangement for us. And don't get sucked into the externals. When Dharma, the bull, when Maharaj Parikshit asked the bull, how'd you get in this plight? He was suffering. 3 of his legs had been chopped off. Imagine a bull trying to walk on one leg. Who's caused this? And you read that philosophy that he shares. Well, there's so many excuses or reasons that people give why I suffer. But ultimately, there's no passing the buck. It is the Lord's arrangement with us, depending on how we have surrendered or not surrendered to Him. And for one who has the desire to surrender, it's perfectly tailored. You're in the HOV lane, the fast lane, and Krishna is trying to bring you back to Him. And one who accepts the challenges, the chastisements, the reversals in life as the Lord's mercy, if one accepts them graciously, with gratitude, and still continues in their devotional service, then as Lord Brahma prays, that person has his ticket for going back home to Godhead. It's just a matter of time. I want to read this one line from, God, I didn't even touch on it. I had the Bhagavad Gita here. For time I am the great destroyer of all the worlds. Yeah, it's breaking everything down except for the devotee. And I was going to give that example when the sages of Naimishranya were hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, they knew Yamaraj was present and no one would be dying because he was focused on the Bhagavatam recitation. He's busy. Hold on here. I'll get to it. So for the intelligent person, it's essential to be in Krishna consciousness, engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, in order to achieve a permanent blissful abode for eternal happiness. So time is cruel, doesn't give us much time to churn these topics, but I open it up. Would anybody like to comment on anything they heard or ask any questions? Balaram Prabhu? Nice kirtan, by the way.
This devotee, I believe this devotee said that he, before he joined, he had a following, and then he joined Prabhupada, and then he left, and then he kind of took his following.
Not all of them, just some went with him.
I think, because I heard a remembrance the other day from, I don't know if it was Hari Shari or something, but he was saying that, I believe he was talking about this particular devotee. He was saying how Prabhupada was in London on his last visit to London there in 1977, before he went back to Vrindavan, and apparently this devotee sent a letter. He sent a letter and to Prabhupada, and he said that Prabhupada, when you think of Hawaii, when you think of Hawaii, I hope that you also think of me. And then Prabhupada heard that, and then then Prabhupada, he started to choke up, and he actually started to cry.
Srila Prabhupada.
Yeah, and he said, I'm always thinking of you. You know, how can I forget you? So, anyways, I thought that was.
Thank you for sharing that. He also came to Vrindavan after that. I saw him come to Vrindavan, and Srila Prabhupada welcomed him, so happy to see him, and encouraged him. If you can't stay in ISKCON, just don't give up the process, and even better, try and spread Krishna consciousness. Ideally, best, highest standard, easiest way to please Srila Prabhupada, stay and assist in the movement that he's created in service to his spiritual master. But Srila Prabhupada just wants us to be happy in the service of the Lord. Anybody else?
I'm not sure how to clearly ask this, but when we say that there's Brahma's 100 years and then a human may have 100 years, but what is the ratio again? 1 day of Brahma is 100 years for a human on this earth? Is that how it is?
No, it's,
how does it work again?
I don't have if I'm right, like 4 million, is it 4,300,000 times 1,000 is Brahma's,
yeah.
That's 1 day.
Okay.
Yeah, now we're talking. That's the 4th chapter, 311 trillion. So it's all, but he thinks and experiences life. Like right now, he's in his 50s. Like Janardhan Prabhu, he's in his 50s.
Yeah.
So Lord Brahma is in his 50s right now.
Okay, so I'm just wondering, he experiences 100 years. I may experience 100 years. Now, is it that like in my 100 years, I might spend like, I don't know, 0.5% of my life brushing my teeth, so for Brahma, does he spend like 0.5% of his life brushing his teeth, or does he spend the amount of time I spend, which is like 0.0000000, like a very small amount? I'm trying to like find a way to like explaining, like, do things take as long for Brahma as they take for me in relation to his life? Like, does eating take as long?
It's all relative.
It is relative. Okay.
But his engagement
Yeah.
is considerably more focused, our Lord Brahma,
Yeah.
on what he should be doing in his service to the Lord.
Okay.
So
So he experiences his life as if it's 100 years the way we do.
Yeah.
But the difference is that so much else
And
on
this
other
thing-
planes are going on so
Yes.
much more quickly. Okay,
Does that
makes
help?
sense. Yes, I've been wondering that.
But it is inconceivable because, and you can even take it the other way, that little insect that just lives for one night in Mayapur, for that bug, he got his 100 years in. He got all the family pleasure, all the striving, searching for food, the pleasures flying around that light, and same thing. The jiva in illusion, whatever species he's in, he's looking for the same things. He's looking for happiness, looking for Krishna. But that's the relativity of it. But it's inconceivable because you can take like Jambavan. Jambavan was there with Lord Ram and Krishna. So how's that 100 years fit in when he's on the earthly planet? Kila. So there are, there's some inconceivableness to it, but we're given the basic ideas so that we can understand. And the practical application of it is, it's not stopping for a moment. And we better be utilizing every moment in the service of the Lord so that when the finish line, like, Dravida may be, we might say he's the oldest one here. If he wasn't here, he might say, I'm the oldest one. But actually, you might be the oldest one because you might be destined to die tomorrow, next week, or what have you. Dayanidhi, he's in his 30s. If he hadn't been wearing his helmet when bicycling, early 40s, he would have, in reality, he would have been a much older person than you and I. Shamali, mid-late 30s. You just never know. So that's the main point that I wanted to really, let's not waste time. Let's support each other in appreciating the value of what we have here. Anybody else? Yes, my friend. All you needed was the tune. Listen to the tune a little more attentively, because the Sanskrit was really good.
Yeah, I got too eager.
It's okay.
Yeah.
That's what practice is about.
Okay. So it reminds me of like when I watched Star Wars as a kid, because like Yoda, he's like super old.
Yeah.
And so he's like super wise. Like that's his like power, because he's so wise because of how many years he lived.
Yeah.
But so my question is like, so Brahma lives all those years. Are there other people as well, like on the planet that Brahma's on, or he just has his own?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's in the second canto, for example. You can hear about Lord Brahma. Priya Bhagavatamrita really describes a day in the life of Brahma and all the inhabitants. Yeah. He's surrounded by sages who have gotten there by, we say sages because they're so elevated. I mean, they don't possess a body made of the same matter we do. They're made of intelligence. Their bodies are so subtle. So so they're all there. Some got there by following the Vedic culture and through piety. Some by worshiping Brahma. Some by Naistika brahmachari their entire life, etc. And if the Brahma's a devotee, when his life is over, he goes back to Godhead, and those who were with him, who took advantage of his association, he takes them with him back to Godhead.
I see. Okay, yeah, that's
Thank you. Yes. Use the microphone for the internet devotees, please.
All right, there's so many moods about time.
So many what?
Moods and modes of time. So how, in your opinion, how will you describe, or how can you describe time to a person who is blind?
There's so many moods or modes in your opinion, so how can you describe what?
Time to a blind man.
Well, they don't see the rising and setting of the sun, but they have the regulation of their body. They eat, they digest, they evacuate, they work or engage in activities, and then they sleep. So there's a cycle going on in their life. And they also feel as life goes on that the energy of the body decreases. You know, that's the influence of time. It destroys. It takes away. And that's what it does to everything in this world except consciousness. Pure consciousness especially. But that would be one way. Anybody else have anything to add on that? Yeah, just because you don't have sight, you know, that in and of itself is not an obstacle in Krishna consciousness. And the perfect example is Suryadas, what was his name? Bilvamangala Thakur. He had no eyes, but he was serious about his Krishna consciousness. And because of it, Krishna gave him the vision to appreciate seeing him, talking to him, glorifying him. He wrote wonderful scripture. And there's another sadhu in Varshana that really, really wanted to see Radha and Krishna Leela, one specific Leela that took place there. And the Lord fulfilled his desire because he was pleased with his service. And this blind man painted this incredible mural on the wall of that temple of Radha and Krishna engaged in their eternal pastime. Beautiful. So, you know, all the minuses are there with possessing the material body in whatever size, shape, or quality it might be, but then the plus is there on the Transno platform for anybody. There's no disqualification to take up Krishna consciousness. You just have to want to do it and be fortunate enough to have the association of those who can teach you how to do it, support you in doing it. On that note, thank you for your association, your attention. Srila Prabhupada ki, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Samaveda Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki, Gaur Premanande.